with the ability to launch a preemptive strike almost immediately on any territory in the world, penetrating any line of defense. The Air Force has always been the first in, last out force of the United States in every war, a force that any superpower must fear. While not the first nation to have an Air Force since World War I, witnessing the destructive power and effectiveness of various fighter aircraft, the Americans have continuously developed their Air Force to the point of becoming the most superior force in the world, not only in destructive power but also in air, space, and cyberspace capabilities. The U.S. currently has 406 intercontinental ballistic missiles and 170 military satellites in its inventory. But, like other air forces, combat aircraft, from bombers and fighters to attack and reconnaissance planes, remain the backbone of the United States Air Force, with 217 military aircraft out of a total of 13, 247 aircraft in service across the entire armed forces. The United States Air Force is currently the largest air force in the world. Not only do they outnumber them, but according to Flight Global's 2021 World Air Forces report, the aircraft in the U.S. military's inventory are mostly among the most modern military aircraft in the world. Strategic bomber aircraft alone can be considered one of the most effective deterrent tools of the Americans, in addition to the B-52s, which were already famous on the battlefields of Viet Nam. The U.S. Air Force also possessed 62 B-1 Lancer strategic bombers with the capability of rapid low-altitude penetration bombing, and most notably, 21 B-2 Spirits with a range of up to 11,000 kilometers. In addition, the Americans also have nearly 400 modern fifth-generation stealth fighters in their inventory, belonging to the F-22 Raptor and F-35 series. The U.S. Air Force currently has 790 F-16 fourth-generation fighter jets and 4090 F-15 fighter jets in active service, all in a state of combat readiness. For comparison, the Russian Air Force currently possesses only 3 to 9 military aircraft. Even including the 310 naval aircraft, the country only has 139 military aircraft in total. As for its Air Force currently possesses only 2 ZO-84 aircraft that are in a state of operational readiness. Among them are some relatively outdated aircraft such as the J-7, a copy of the MiG-21, and the J-8, a copy of the Su-15. Even the Chengdu J-20, China's most modern fifth-generation fighter jet, is reportedly not yet ready for combat due to some engine problems. With such equipment, the Chinese still have a very long way to go before they can catch up with the US in terms of air power. However, in actual battlefields, the deterrent power of the U.S. Air Force has consistently proven ineffective against tenacious adversaries when they lack close coordination with the Navy. With its overwhelming firepower, high mobility, and presence at bases worldwide, the mere presence of the U.S. Navy is enough to make any adversary wary before even considering war. This is the second reason why, in a 2020 report on the Chinese military, the Pentagon stated that Beijing's military potential had increased significantly over the past 20 years thanks to its ambitious armed forces modernization program, with the ambition to control the illegal Nine-Dash Line in the South China Sea and the Senkaku Islands in the East China Sea. Simultaneously, it has transformed itself into a blue water navy, capable of operating and fighting in any sea region in the world, even those areas thousands of kilometers away from its homeland. The Chinese Navy has developed to become one of the world's leading naval forces. In fact, to some extent, they have surpassed the United States. However, at least for the time being, citizens don't need to worry too much about the prospect of the Chinese Navy approaching the U.S. coast because, overall, the strategic deterrence capabilities of the U.S. Navy remain relatively far behind the rest of the world in both offensive and defensive capabilities. The United States currently possesses the world's largest fleet of aircraft carriers, including 10 Nimitz-class nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, and 1 Ford-class aircraft carrier, along with 9 amphibious assault ships, destroyer, 8, and various other warships. The U.S. Navy is fully capable of conducting mobile attacks, deterrence, or preemptive strikes against any adversary should hostilities break out, even when faced with Russia's latest Kinjal hypersonic missile or China's advanced anti-ship ballistic missile with a maximum speed of Mach 10 and a range of up to 4,000 km. FK-18 and F-5C aircraft on U.S. aircraft carriers can quickly scramble to intercept and simultaneously counterattack the enemy fleets. But American aircraft carriers are not invulnerable. They can still be captured if the enemy launches a surprise, large-scale attack with hypersonic missiles. However, even if that worst-case scenario were to occur, the enemy would immediately be subjected to ballistic missile attacks launched from the U. Navy's 14 Ohio-class nuclear submarines. In addition, the amphibious assault force of up to 11 ships of the Harper's Ferry and Whidbey Island classes is also capable of quickly deploying America's most elite soldiers to land and seize enemy coastal military bases. Even though launching a proactive attack and inflicting significant damage on the U.S. Navy is not an impossible task for powers like China and Russia. However, completely destroying this enormous force is nearly impossible. And when they counterattack, the consequences that follow will be catastrophic. That would be enough to make any country realize how much better it would have been if they hadn't waged war against the American military in the first place, despite their large numbers and formidable presence. But traditional air and naval forces alone are not enough to protect Americans from the threat of devastating attacks on their own territory if they do not possess a massive nuclear arsenal. This third reason is arguably the most important: preventing other major powers from directly provoking the United States, with the status of being the first force to deploy nuclear weapons on the battlefield. Iran possesses 1,000 nuclear warheads of various types, with 150 currently operational, including 950 strategic warheads deployed on 798 launch vehicles and 200 operational nuclear warheads currently deployed throughout Europe. The U. military remains one of the world's most advanced nuclear forces with the most effective strategic deterrence capabilities. Like Russia, China's intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, play a particularly important role, forming the centerpiece of its nuclear deterrence strategy. This means that if an all-out war were to break out between the United States and another nuclear power, these missiles would be launched by the U.S. military, carrying nuclear warheads, directly targeting key enemy cities. Although it is believed that only about 420 of the 500 ground-based ICBMs will be retained, and those equipped with multiple target warheads will be converted to carry only a single warhead. However, according to many experts, the Americans will not easily abandon the ability of their ICBMs to carry multiple warheads. Accordingly, this capability will be retained to allow the use of hundreds of warheads currently in storage in the event of an all-out war between the U.S. and other major powers. The ICBM force is currently deployed in 3 air wings: the 90th Missile Wing at F.E. Air Force Base, Warren, Wyoming, the 91st Missile Wing at Minot Air Force Base, and the 3D-41st Wing at Malmstrom Air Force Base, Montana. Each air wing has 150 missiles divided into 3 squadrons, each squadron equipped with 50 missiles, and controlled by 5 launch control centers. U.S. intercontinental ballistic missiles are typically equipped with WS-9A and WA-7 warheads, with a yield of up to 300 kilotons. Meanwhile, the Little Boy atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima created an explosion epicenter with a temperature of 7,000 degrees Celsius, incinerating all living things within a 1 radius, killing 40% of the population instantly, and 5% within 4 months. Not only does the U. military possess an unstoppable array of ballistic missiles, but its strategic nuclear deterrence capabilities also lie in strategic bombers capable of carrying nuclear bombs, such as the B-52 and B-2 Spirit, at the three bases of the 20th and 96th Bomber Squadrons of the 2nd Air Wing at Barksdale Air Force Base, Squadrons 23 and 69 of the 5th Air Wing at Minot Air Base, Squadrons 13 and 393 of 509th Air Wing at Whiteman Air Force Base. The Americans had prepared up to 300 nuclear warheads, including B-617, B-611 Stu aircraft, and B-83-1 Gravy bomb. The W-81 nuclear warhead is specifically equipped on air-launched cruise missiles, CALC-MEMS, intended for the B-52H aircraft. In addition, the Americans also possess a massive arsenal of non-strategic nuclear weapons to preempt smaller-scale operations, although not as devastating as strategic nuclear weapons. The destructive power of non-strategic nuclear weapons is more than enough to inflict significant damage on major military bases, cities, industrial complexes, and other fortified targets. It is known that the United States currently maintains approximately 200 non-strategic nuclear weapons. Of these, 150-200 B-6134 bombs are currently deployed at 6 air bases in 5 NATO member countries in Europe: Belgium, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, and Turkey. The Air Forces of Belgium, the Netherlands, Turkey, Italy, and Germany, so with PA-200 Tornado aircraft, were tasked with striking down U.S. nuclear weapons. In addition, the U.S. also has approximately 500 non-strategic nuclear warheads stored in domestic depots and deployed on Tomahawk missiles. However, it can be asserted that the prospect of an all-out war resulting in the mutual destruction of both sides between the U.S. and any other superpower is highly unlikely. However, a nation hostile to the United States has no shortage of other means to weaken the United States without resorting to military action. One of these is funding rebel and terrorist organizations with certain types of light weapons, enabling them to attack you. Interests around the world in order to higher doping the strength of the U. Military, and not wanting to disappoint their sponsors, the insurgents' flexible guerrilla tactics allowed them to fight with nothing to lose, inflicting significant damage on the Americans on the battlefield. That was also the time when the U.S.'s highly accurate guided bombs and munitions had the opportunity to demonstrate their power. Although guided bombs and munitions are relatively new development, their ability to strike with lightning speed and high accuracy has been proven on the most brutal battlefields of the 21st century. Smart bombs munitions are arguably one of the reasons why no power should wage war against the United States military. The realities of the battlefield in the Middle East and Africa have shown that the use of smart bombs and munitions has yielded clear results in missions to destroy command centers, armored vehicles, and damage enemy infrastructure. According to many military experts, high-precision weapons such as smart bombs and munitions also significantly reduce the time, manpower, and costs associated with military operations. During the 1991 Gulf War, the percentage of precision-guided weapons did not exceed 35%. Therefore, the campaign preparation phase lasted more than 5 months. Over 300 soldier, 2,000 tons of weapons and equipment, and 500,000 tons of various goods had to be transported by sea and air to the Gulf region. In fact, during the 2003 Iraq War, the number of smart bombs used reached 70%. In the fight against the self-proclaimed Islamic State, IS, high-precision weapons did not disappoint those who bought them, playing a huge role in destroying not only bases and war vehicles, but also high-ranking leaders of this terrorist organization. It is precisely because of its ability to attack quickly, efficiently, and effectively that this type of weapon is highly favored by the U.S. military. Despite their increasingly high prices, many experts even believe that the era of conventional artillery shells in the U.S. military will end, giving way to missiles and smart bombs with near-perfect accuracy. Finally, among the weapons that define a global superpower, it would be remiss not to mention the small but powerful unmanned aerial vehicle, UAV force that its military possesses. Since their appearance, these tiny UAVs have long been a nightmare for military forces that have ever faced the United States military. With a host of advantages including lightweight, low radar signature, large combat radius, high maneuverability, subsonic flight speed, modular structure, and ease of improvement and modernization, the U.S. military expects unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, to profoundly change ground warfare tactics, much like machine guns once did, thanks to their advanced scientific and technological foundation. The Americans have produced and put into use more than 1,000 unmanned aerial vehicles, say UAVs of various types. Most American drones are very advanced compared to the rest of the world. They can perform intelligence gathering, reconnaissance, target surveillance, electronic warfare, and precision bombing missions at low cost. At the same time, it can operate independently or as part of a combat squadron under the command and control of a manned fighter aircraft. The formidable combat capabilities of the UAVs possessed by the U.S. military are not exaggerated. In 2020, the world was shaken when a U.S. drone easily and successfully assassinated Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, despite the helplessness of the Iranian military and people. With such, the Americans have demonstrated that they are fully capable of eliminating any individual they deem to be a threat to national security. And those were 5 reasons why military experts believe no country would dare to provoke the U.S. military. What about you? Please add your comments below. And now, Viet Quang says goodbye and see you all again in the next videos.